Hi there YouTube, this is BazBanter93 here again. Hope you're all good. Now then, I've decided just for fun to do a follow-up video to my review of adaptations of The Wind in the Willows, stating why I like Cosgrove Hall's TV series the best. Hopefully viewers watching enjoyed that video and that's the reason you're here. This is my personal top 10 episodes of Wind in the Willows, and if you're a fan, do feel free to comment your personal favourites in the comments section below. Number 10. Wayfarers All from Series 1. This episode was actually adapted from Chapter 9 of the original book by Kenneth Graham. 3 chapters had been omitted from Cosgrove Hall's original film, but were brought to stop motion life fantastically in the first series. It's late summer, and Ratty is annoyed that everyone is getting prepared for the cold winter a few months ahead instead of making the most of the last of the warm weather.
Picnic, Ratty? Oh, it's a bit late in the year for that, isn't it?
Late? Nonsense. The summer isn't half over.
He begins to ponder about life beyond his riverbank home, and very ironically is visited by a strange and unfamiliar seafaring rat on his travels. The seafarer's exotic tales of faraway lands and faraway seas bewitch Ratty, and in an impulsive, mesmerised state of mind, he decides to abandon his normal way of life and pursue the travelling seafarer and his ways of living. Mole soon notices Ratty's not at home, and after consulting Otter, he finds out where his best friend is and realises he could be making the biggest mistake of his life. Badger is hibernating, although after this episode is seen around all year round. So Mole's last resort is Toad.
He's left home.
Oh, Ratty? Ooh, that's a surprise. Where's he gone?
Otto said Constantinople.
It's just the other side of Berkhamsted.
I don't think that can be right, Toady.
That's abroad.
We must stop him.
This is what makes this story great, being held in the TV series. In the book, during this story, Toad had just escaped prison and was attempting to get home whilst on the run. Here, he helps Mole reach Ratty and snap him out of his spellbind state of mind. This is definitely the least comical out of the episodes featured on this list, but it is so unique. It takes us to places we never see of again, and Toad is put in such a good light for a change.
Oh.
Toad, you were splendid. I could never have done it without you.
Just as well I knew where Constantinople was. Eh?
Toad is annoyed because his friends have beaten him at croquet. Toad is an extreme bad loser. He then invests in some expensive golf equipment and believes golf is the sport that is his calling in life.
Oh, drat! Where did that go?
The Chief Weasel and his dozy henchmen soon appear to watch Toad make a fool of himself.
Well. Hole in one.
Hole in one?
Hole in one of the upstairs windows.
The Chief, knowing of Toad's foolishness and arrogance, charms his way into having a golfing match with Toad. Not just a match neither, but a bet. The stakes? Toad's stolen watch to Toad Hall. A ridiculous bet that only a ridiculous Toad would accept. Toad is sure he'll win, and Badger, Mole and Ratty are spectating the match to see the Weasels play fair. Lots of great wit and slapstick to this story.
Good heavens, he's dozed off as well.
Number 8. The Labyrinth from Series 2. Whilst walking to Badger's, Ratty rescues Billy Rabbit from a hedge, but more or less straight after needs rescuing himself when he stumbles down an old badger tunnel. Meanwhile, Toad is obsessed with the idea of being an amphibious Sherlock Holmes, with Dr. John Mole as his faithful assistant.
Toad, you've been reading the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, haven't you?
No, I haven't. Well.
The 3 friends soon notice Ratty's failure in arriving to an planned invite at Badger's home. They search for him in the wild wood, where the great detective discovers the hole Ratty fell down by falling down it himself. They soon notice Ratty's scarf down the hole and some blood on a nearby stone. Badger, Mole and Toad have to search in a labyrinth of old underground tunnels made by Badger's ancestors to find their missing friend. This episode has a great balance of comedy and drama. Number 7. Paper Chase from Series 3. The young field mice are playing cricket in the grounds of Toad Hall and accidentally break one of Toad's windows, much to Toad's annoyance.
Some of the finest stained glass in England, scattered in 1,000 fragments,
The field mice apologise and explain they are bored. Ratty suggests that he and his friends organise a paper chase contest for the youngsters, and Toad and the weasels decide to enter too, and naturally try to cheat their way into winning. Toad is in his motor car, making sure he parks it, hiding it away from all the planned routes and checkpoints, and multiple weasels meet at various hiding places to take over one another in the race. It's a very fun and witty story.
We won that cup. Oh, that's not fair. He ran faster than I did.
It has been decided that Toad and Aloysius Weasel are disqualified.
Number 6. Mr. Toad's telephone from Series 3. Toad has bought an electric telephone from, surprise surprise, those dodgy weasels. The idiot never learns and is installing it at Toad Hall with Mole spectating. Mole mentions the phone has no wires, of which Toad responds to say this phone is so great it doesn't need wires. He soon realises the phone does need wires, and he needs other telephones for his friends to own so he can ring them up.
One for Mr. Mole, one for Mr. Rat, and one for our mutual friend, Mr. Badger.
Ratty and Mole have been dealing with the wires all across the riverbank. Badger couldn't care less about the idea.
Yes, there's an Excelsior telephone unit waiting for you, too.
Then it'll wait, Toad, a very long time,
Eh?
because I won't be having one.
Once Ratty and Mole's phones are finally set up, Toad rushes back home to ring Mole, and he gets a nasty shock.
He rang. He rang. He rang.
Number 5. Caught in a Maze from Series 3. After recently returning home from London, Toad tells his friends about his adventures there and particularly about his visit to Hampton Court Maze. He decides to have his own maze made in the grounds of Toad Hall, but Badger points out that his ancestral home has had a maze for years, but Toad never bothers to take care or much notice of the land his family left him. Toad has the maze restored and invites his friends to a grand opening. He challenges them all to enter the maze alongside him, and whoever gets out first wins a bottle of champagne. Toad decides to cheat by leaving a trail behind him via a ball of string, but things do not go how he planned and his panic goes into overdrive. Number 4. Fighting Fit from Series 4. Badger lectures Toad about his physical fitness.
Disgrace.
Eh?
Overweight and underdeveloped.
I say.
But then no wonder when the only exercise you seem to get is lifting cream cakes.
And when Mole and Ratty chime in too, he has had enough and invests in some expensive top quality gymnastic equipment with hilarious results.
Who else will be able to give it such a wallop? And... Yeah.
However, after all these funny moments, the three friends find out Toad has been ignoring letters from the railway that is planned to be built over the riverbank and Wildwood. They are very angry that Toad has jeopardised any chance they had of preventing this railway company from affecting or even demolishing their homes.
What you have done is to endanger the homes, the joys, the whole way of life of an entire community.
It ends with great drama, balancing out the comedy. Number 3. Hot Air from Series 4. Toad has bought a hot air balloon for his own enjoyment.
I bought a balloon, haven't I? For ballooning. Yes, a gas balloon.
But Badger sees it as a way of being put to good use. Toad, whilst up in the air, can take pictures of the railway being built and see how near they are approaching the riverbank. Whilst Toad is preparing the essentials for his great ballooning adventure, the Chief Weasel has ordered his henchmen to investigate why there is a big hot air balloon in the grounds of Toad Hall. The henchman ain't half knackered and ends up having a nap in the balloon basket. Toad and his friends have not noticed this. Mole is struggling to lift the basket containing all the food Toad packed into the balloon and trips a guide rope. The balloon ascends into the air just as the henchman wakes up, and Toad and the terrified Weasel are soon up in the clouds. Toad shouts to Mole to follow him, and the only way for Mole to do this is to drive Toad's car.
How am I going to follow him? I'll have to drive the car. Where's it gone? Where's the balloon? Motoring! Motoring! It's the only thing!
Number 2. Toad in Love from Series 5, or Oh Mr. Toad. Toad has decided he's going to be a filmmaker, much to Badger's disgust. He explains he is going to London to buy a film camera, and whilst there, he watches a music hall show at a local theatre.
He's up in the gallery. The boy I love is looking.
Toad becomes besotted with the leading lady, a Miss Lottie d'Urberville. He hastily buys a bouquet of flowers and some chocolates after the show in an attempt to woo her. The stage doorkeeper informs Toad she has already gone home. Toad goes back home completely lovesick, and when Badger finds out that Toad is in love, he even prefers her to cream cakes. He is astounded.
You're not in love, are you?
Oh, Badger, how did you know?
On Toad's next visit to London in hope to pursue Miss d'Urberville, Badger comes along too and finds out the real identity of this singing actress.
He's married to a tightrope walker.
The tightrope walker. A tightrope walker?
Toad is genuinely upset, but soon starts returning back to his self-centered self, and when Mole tells Toad his filming equipment has arrived in the post, Toad is completely over his lost love.
I'll show you.
But Toadie, what about Lottie?
What? Oh, she'll get over it.
This is another episode that is like no other, and I like the fact that Toad has fallen for this woman, not a female Toad, which obviously would be absurd in reality, but in the world of the Wind and the Willows, these anthropomorphic animals do indeed act very human. This episode has some great emotional and mature themes to it for what some could class as a kids' show.
In my ski suit and skis, with my boots to my knees, and my ski cap of blue, pink, and brown. In my flying ace goggles, the crowd turns and ogles. The
Fill
prince
your
of
basket yet, Toad?
Filled my basket? Of course I haven't, Badger. I'm weak from loss of blood.
Oh, do stop making a fuss,
Still on a
Toad.
canal bank, and I was knocked into the water by a motor bicycle.
I say.
And my dad said I'll give that idiot from Toad Hall what for.
Oh, did he?
And then he shot a motor bicycle again, Mr. Toad, and it wasn't you at all, sir, riding it.
No, because I
It was a
had the
weasel.
recipe. A moment that will leave the great name of Toad covered in glory.
Number 1. Piano Roll Toad from Series 5. This is my absolute favourite episode. It's pure farce all the way through. Toad's late aunt has left him a pianola in her will. A pianola is like a piano, but you put pre-recorded musical sheets into it and just play the recorded music by pedalling. However, Toad loves to show off and makes out to his friends he owns a real piano. He concocts this absurd story that he has hired a profound Russian piano teacher to teach him twice a week. He then invites them all to a piano recital he is holding at Toad Hall that very night. At home, he creates a device where he uses the frame of his old Dursley Pedersen bike to pedal some ropes attached to the pianola. He then finds Billy Rabbit and asks him to pedal the bike for him whilst he plays the keys. It takes ages for Toad to explain to Billy exactly what he wants him to do. Pedal the bike behind a folding screen whilst Toad plays the pianola, whilst also not letting on to Mole, Rat or Badger that he is cheating. Back at Toad Hall, Billy is still struggling to understand what Toad exactly wants him to do.
Oh dear, oh dear. I wonder if it's I wonder if it's all worth it.
Those sneaky weasels have been spying on Toad again and discover what he is up to. The chief exposes Toad's cheating and Toad gets very upset. But it is so funny to see the ridiculous lengths Toad will go to just show off to his chums.
Pedal faster! No, not that fast, Billy. Billy, it's so fun! Stop pedaling!
Very sitcom style story. Well, that was my top 10 episodes. I hope you all enjoyed this list and the video, and please do comment below your favourite episodes. Ta very much. This is BazBanter93 signing out. Boop boop.